to begin the recording. All right. So this is Hallie Crawford. I am a certified career coach and the founder of HallieCrawford.com. And we are going to be talking about dealing with difficult coworkers or employees, how to leverage coaching skills to manage those professional relationships. And I'm sure you all, and the reason why you're here today is because you've had this issue before. I have as well. So I really appreciate your time being here today, everybody. We will have a quick Q&A at the end. This webinar will be approximately 30 minutes. Please enter any questions that you have in the chat box as we go, and I will answer as many as I can at the end here. But let me give you a quick introduction to me. I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, and I have actually been coaching and training for just over 17 years. I know some of you might think, gosh, that sounds crazy because she sounds like she's 12. I'm actually 45 and have a 10-year-old son. And I just got lucky in my career path that I was able to start my ideal career early in life and be able to be rewarded and fulfilled in the long run. So I have had to deal with difficult coworkers or employees before I had my business, and sometimes that's the case as well today too. So I just want to let you know I understand how this works. Just as a quick reminder, one other admin thing, everybody here, is everyone will be on mute during the course of this program so that everyone can hear okay, just in case someone has background noise going on. You can obviously, though, ask me questions, as I said, or make comments in the chat box as we go, okay? So let's go ahead and dive in. So why is it important to talk about dealing with difficult coworkers or employees? It's important, obviously, everybody, because it's frustrating for us, right? And it can impact how we feel about our jobs. But also, if you take a look at this slide, okay, research shows that up to 60 or between 60 to 80% of all difficulties in organizations can actually come from strained relationships and communication problems versus problems or issues with certain employees' skills or motivation or, how their work performance is going. And the typical manager can spend between 25 to 40% of his or her time dealing with workplace conflicts. They should not be having to deal with this. They should be focusing on other things, right? And that ends up being 1 to 2 days of every work week having to manage and deal with this, which is not acceptable and not okay, which is why we are here to talk about this today, okay? So I want to just take a quick poll here. I'm actually not going to set it up in the system here today because I want to keep moving and make sure we get to all of our content. But I just want you to write down for yourself, okay, who have you had issues with in the past, or who do you have issues with now? Is it one person? Is it several people at work? Write those down for me because I want you to start thinking about, these strategies and tips and advice, and think about which one of the strategies or tips I give you that's going to be best, suited for each of these people, because you're going to need to approach the different people with kind of different scenarios based on their personality type, etc. Okay? So just think about that right now. Write down their name. And as we go here today, I want you to think about what the first best strategy might be for each of these people, okay? Just as a quick reminder, I wanted to say something too here, that we are recording this webinar, so you will get a recording of it at the end. If anyone has trouble downloading the handout that we've provided in the chat box here, please just feel free to email me afterwards, and I'm happy to send that to you. And if anyone would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, so they have that as well, just send me an email. I'll mention this again later at Hallie@HallieCrawford.com. Happy to do that too. So here's the deal. We understand how hard this can be for people and the importance of this issue, difficult coworkers, because we've had clients and worked with them who want to be better managers or have better relationships with coworkers, all the way to clients, honestly, who have been in toxic work situations because of communication or harassment issues, unfortunately. So we've kind of had the gamut in terms of our clients and what they need to fix. And as you all can imagine, the culture of an organization is critically important to your satisfaction at work. And we coach clients using all of these coaching skills that I'm going to show you today all the time, because it helps them improve the environment they're in, which is a critical piece to having fulfillment and satisfaction in your work, okay? So let's take a look at this next slide here. This is the ideal career model, the model that we use with all of our clients in order to help them not just figure out their career direction, but also make sure that they're in the right fit if they need to make a move because this work environment is a problem for them, okay? And if you take a look here, the work environment, all of these pieces are critical to your career satisfaction, absolutely. But the work environment, everybody, it's a make or break for your career. If that is not working for you, you are not going to be happy, even if all of these other pieces are in place. So you need to make sure that you deal with this issue, difficult people, so that you can ensure that you're satisfied in all of the other areas as well in terms of your career, okay? So this is what we're going to talk about today. Here's our agenda, and as I said a moment ago, you can email me for a copy of this presentation. Happy to give it to you. We're going to talk first about how to define coaching, like how we define it in terms of understanding, you know, what our skills are, and kind of give you a little bit of background there, okay? We're going to give you 3 critical communication skills that you can use to deal with difficult coworkers. There are some resources I'm going to mention, and I want you all to walk away here with specific action steps, at least 2 steps, everybody, write this down, 2 action steps that you will take in the next week in order to make improvement in this area with these difficult people, okay? So here's the first piece. We want to talk about how can we define coaching, or how we define coaching for our clients. Coaching is basically, everybody, helping someone learn in order to improve their performance. And here's the deal, and I want you to really get this, because if you get grounded in this kind of definition of coaching and how to approach this situation, it's going to help you enormously. So take a look at the slide here. Coaching is not about issuing instructions, but it's typically about helping people, showing them something, a different way to do something or think about something, giving feedback, explaining something, or encouraging them, okay? So we typically, like in true coaching form, pure coaching is not supposed to be just about giving advice. Now, I do give advice because I've been a coach for so long and I've kind of moved into consulting as well. But you want to think first about when you're talking with someone difficult, the first thing to do, not necessarily, is not give them advice right out of the box, because they may not take it well. It's more about asking questions, getting feedback, asking them their perspective, okay? So let me pull these up here for just a second here, get them all up here. Coaching skills to improve communication in the workplace. The reason why we want to think about coaching skills in order to help this situation is it can help you develop greater trust with this person that you're having trouble with. It can help you develop greater empathy for them, and we want you to do that because it can help diffuse the situation. It can help you better, you know, manage your tone when you're speaking with them or communicating, and it can help open up greater, you know, lines of communication, if you will, for greater honesty and feedback also. And then finally, the 5th thing is, ideally, it can develop greater connection between the 2 of you. So based on all of these other things, you can have greater connection with them in order to hopefully work together better, okay? So this is the idea. We want to develop these pieces. And by the way, when you wrote down the names of the people, like, you want to write down, what's the issue with us? Is it that we just are constantly, you know, using the wrong tone and not speaking to each other effectively? Or is it about trust or something else? So think about that too, okay? So some of the foundational skills for coaching that we learn in coaching school are these on this slide here: designing the relationship and how to design it so that it's effective, active and effective listening, curiosity and using that in order to help diffuse situations and move forward in a proactive way. Also using your intuition and self-management, okay? All of these things can help you deal with this difficult coworker or employee by helping diffuse these difficult situations. We are going to talk about the first 3 at the top, everybody. That's why on this slide, those are bolded. So we're going to focus on these 3 critical coaching skills in order to help you improve this communication. Okay, so we'll talk about designing the relationship, active listening, and how to use curiosity in order to improve your relationship and your communication as well. So let's talk first about designing the relationship for greater effectiveness. So this would be skill number 1, okay? So what we suggest is that the person that you're having difficulty with, if you can take a step back and think about and talk with them, ideally, about how do we work together more effectively. So instead of just like, okay, we're working together and this is the task we need to perform or the project we need to work on, talk about and take a step back and say, okay, what is our working relationship like and how do we improve it? So these are some things you can do to start designing the relationship. And there's a couple of slides here on this one, okay? So to create an agreement with this person to work together more effectively, you can talk with them, and the first thing you want to do is like ask them their opinion. Like, so how do you think things are going? What do you think we need to do in order to change things or improve how we work together on this project? Okay. You can then, the second thing here is establish guidelines for communication, how you communicate. Is it better? Like, does this person prefer to talk in person, but you prefer email? And so that's part of the rub. What do you need to do in terms of improving the communication to kind of meet halfway? Guidelines for how you handle tasks, how often you meet, what you meet about, and making those meetings more effective. And setting boundaries for, gosh, I can't talk after 5 about this stuff or after a certain period of time, or hey, I need time in the morning to like get my head on straight and get centered. So if we need to discuss something, can it be after 9 a.m. or 10 or whatever it is? And then finally, making an agreement for how to handle conflict or disagreements that you might have, or giving each other feedback. This is ideal. If you can have these kinds of agreements, that's even better to have this kind of open communication about it. Now, what I want you to understand, and then I'm going to go to the next slide here, is that I'm not expecting you to have to dive right into this, and the person is going to be wide open to talking about all of it. You can take it in baby steps, okay? And it can be something over the course of several months that you adjust and figure out over time. But this is the ideal to get to this point, okay? These are the things that you want to touch on when you're designing the relationship or redesigning it. You want to work through these items here. What are our objectives and our goals here and the tasks we should each be performing based on our strengths? What are the roles we should play based on what we're good at? And maybe you need to adjust those because that's part of the conflict or issue. What are the challenges that we have encountered and how can we avoid those in the future? Milestones for how we know that we're progressing on our project and being successful. And what are the ground rules for how we meet, communicate, et cetera, like we said before. So this would be like a checklist that you would have for yourselves to go through, okay, what are the things that we need to improve and kind of design or redesign our relationship. So I want you all to think about if you have developed this kind of checklist before with anybody for a team or a professional relationship, one-on-one or a team, because these actually go well for both, by the way. So I want you to consider these for both your team groups, if you will, of people and teams, as well as one-on-one relationships, okay? So another thing to consider in terms of designing the relationship is this is a basic outline or model, if you will, of the 4 needs of followers in professional organizations. And this, I would assert, isn't just for employees, this would be for coworkers too. Everyone wants to have a sense of trust and stability in their jobs and their career and where we're going and what we're doing and that we can trust our coworkers to complete things, right? On the right-hand side here, they want to have a sense of like happiness and enjoyment in their job, at least to a certain extent, right? And a sense of hope, like where are we going? And faith that we're going to achieve those goals and make things happen and that I'll be promoted when I want to, etc. So you need to also consider in terms of designing the relationship, everybody, but also considering what might be wrong and going wrong with it, what their issue might be or yours might be with them, is one of these pieces of the model here. Is it that lack of stability or trust or something else? Because this can help you, again, identify what might be going wrong so that you can then proactively address the situation and try to work through it with them, okay? So finally here, in terms of designing the relationship, and then we'll move on to active listening, is the reason why this can help you improve your relationships because it empowers each person to take responsibility for what's going on. So like I said a few minutes ago, when you ask them what their opinion is too, like how they're feeling about things, but also what they would suggest you guys do differently, it empowers them to take ownership of what is going on and gets their buy-in for, taking responsibility for making those changes. It establishes clearer boundaries so that you guys have a quote unquote safer space to work in so that you can trust each other more and you feel like you're going to be honest with each other or at least a little bit more, okay? I would suggest, by the way, at the bottom here, periodically updating your agreements with each person, but also within your team, as your needs and desires and even goals change based on your work situation. So I would, create a task on your calendar for every like quarter, basically, to kind of check in with, okay, how are things going with this particular person and anybody else? And do we need to redesign how we work together? Because you want to make sure that it's kind of a living, organic thing, okay? So number two, the second critical coaching skill we're going to talk about now is active listening and how to leverage this to, work with these difficult employees. But honestly, this goes for the people you get along with as well, okay? So you all have probably heard about effective or active listening. Everything in the workplace involves communication. It's a make or break like we talked about before. And that two-way communication, not just one way, is critical in the way that, it can obviously enormously influence and impact our efficiency and effectiveness of what we do. And here's the thing, a lot of us will say, oh yeah, I'm a good listener. I can sit quietly and listen to somebody. Not everybody knows naturally how to listen really, really well and be very active in their listening. And that's what we're going to talk about today, okay? So there are basically three levels of listening and coaching. And I'm going to pull these up here just for a second here so you can see the first one at least, okay? So the first level is level one, and this is internal listening, where we're listening to kind of the dialogue in our head. We've all got this. It's your opinion. It might be your judgment about something like, oh my gosh, that sounds really hard, or gosh, I'm hungry, or I can't sit that much longer in this meeting. It's driving me nuts. Thinking about what you want to say next also can be considered internal listening. And we're all going to have this. You can't avoid it completely. But the goal, everyone, is to, if you hear yourself doing that or notice you're doing that, you want to get back over there with them, like listen to it, bookmark it, make a decision about what you need to do with it, if anything, and then get back to level 2 and level 3 listening instead, okay? Because you can't be in your head all the time. The person is going to be able to tell what's going on, and it won't be as powerful. Level 2 listening is focused listening on the other person. Listening to each word, everyone, but also their nonverbals and the nuances. What are they not saying to you that you need to pick up on? Or what are they saying? Like, are they saying, yes, this works for me, but gosh, their arms are crossed and their demeanor is kind of tight or tough or, seems kind of angry. So you need to also pay attention to what they're not saying and what's going on with their nonverbals, whether it's their facial expression or their body language or when they're pausing or not, their tone of the conversation, etc. Okay? So the third level of listening in coaching is called global listening. And this is basically the energy between the two of you, how it's changing or shifts in attitude, the mood, the tone of the conversation. You need to pay attention to this too. And as they say in coaching, don't step over anything. Don't just ignore the fact that things are tense. If you need to diffuse the situation, say, hey, I need to go to the bathroom for a second or whatever it is. Can we take a break for a moment or whatever, so that the mood and tone and attitude can change? Pay attention to the energy in the room and between the two of you, not just listening to what they say, because you may need to call something out that needs to be addressed that's just not getting verbalized, okay? So I want you to write down right now, everybody, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think your listening skills are based on these three levels of listening? Do you believe that you have effective listening skills? 10 would be great and fantastic. 1 would be not so hot. So go ahead and write that down for me as well. And you can also think, everyone, about times when, you're better at listening versus others, like better at listening versus one-on-one or the other way around. So consider that and write that down for me as well, okay? Now, some of the ways to do this, to be a more active listener, but also kind of diffuse a possibly tense situation, are these two things at the bottom of the slide. Set the tone of the conversation if you feel like it could get touchy and go south. Set the tone of the conversation before you start. Let them know, hey, I need to talk about something that might be kind of touchy. Or, can I ask permission here? Can I tell you something that may be kind of hard to hear, but I really need to tell you because I care about our relationship and having it be, effective. Ask permission to give or provide feedback that may be difficult, or tell them something that may be kind of touchy. they will be more likely to hear it better because you haven't just crossed the line and you've asked that permission first and they've given you, the permission to talk about it. They may say another time is better and you can say, okay, great. Can we talk about it tomorrow in the morning? Fine, no problem. The other way to get into better listening skills though, or, kind of a perspective, is at the very bottom here on the slide. Be quiet when you're listening, like slow yourself down, still your body. The physical action can really help kind of support what you need to change and do here. So calm down, go slow when you're talking, be deliberate about the words that you're choosing and the tone. Don't step over anything. Like we talked about before, if you sense something else is going on, call it out, be bold, and slow them down too if needed. Hey, I think we need to slow down here for a second because I need to think this through. I don't know about you, but I kind of need to think this through a little bit. And finally, everyone, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, ask a question versus giving advice. Ask them what they think, what their opinion is, okay? Get their feedback and, buy-in on something. A lot of times, as you can understand and know, people just need to vent for a few minutes before they get to a better place. So it's okay to allow them to vent for a moment, as long as they're not, abusing you, so to speak. That's too strong of a word, but you know what I mean, okay? It's okay to let them vent for a few minutes too. That can help enormously if it's touchy right out of the box. So here is one of the homework assignments that I want to give you all in terms of active listening is complete this active empathic listening scale online and identify your 2 lowest areas and how you can improve those. So this is a free scale online. You can email me for a copy of this tool. I'm happy to send it to you. And this scale, very short and sweet, it's free, you just go right to it. It covers some of the main points or the main skills you have to have or accomplish or be good about in terms of active listening. And if you complete this and then rank yourself, I want you to identify the 2 lowest areas and where you need to improve and come up with some action steps around those 2 areas, okay? And then finally, in terms of active listening, here's another homework assignment and an exercise. Have a close friend or family member tell you about like a problem they're struggling with, something they're okay with talking to you about. And you are only, and this is very coach-like, okay? You are only allowed to either reflect what they say and paraphrase it as well. No giving advice, no even asking questions at the beginning. And then you could try another exercise with them and only ask questions and that's it. Here's the deal with this, everybody. You might seem like or feel like, gosh, that's so easy. What's the big deal? When I do workshops with people, this is so hard for them to do because we are so used to giving advice and diving right in, okay? And what I want you to practice doing as much as possible is asking questions and just reflecting back versus diving in and telling them what to do, okay? So the third piece here, or the third critical coaching skill, is using curiosity, okay? And we're going to talk about this one on the next slide here. So let me pull these up. So first of all, it's about being curious versus judging or getting angry or frustrated. This can really help diffuse a situation, especially a difficult one, okay? So use your curiosity, act like you're like a kid in a candy store, like a child, and you're just wanting to ask questions of them to find out more about what's going on, to either let them vent or get some ideas about what to do differently. We talked already here on the slide about asking permission before sharing. The second thing to understand here and get better at is open-ended questions and learning to use those. These are not yes or no questions. These are childlike. They have no judgment and allow others to vent, explain, or identify a solution. Okay, and I'll give you some examples here in just a second. So powerful questions are things that are open-ended and allow you all to establish greater and better communication and trust and everything else. And here are some examples at the bottom. Gosh, how can we improve our working relationship? What's the best way to accomplish this goal without conflict? Or like, how are you feeling about this project overall? And just, you guys start talking about it, but just be curious. And again, there's no judgment and it's not yes or no questions. These are actually really hard. It may sound simple at the beginning, but again, when I do workshops with people, they start asking the question, everyone, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going down the road and this question is going to end up being yes or no, and I need to, start over again. Asking just completely open-ended questions can be hard. One of the things that's so helpful about it, though, everybody, is it assumes that there's a solution. So instead of saying, gosh, do you think we can fix this? No, okay, that doesn't help. But saying instead, how do you think we can, makes the inherent assumption that we can fix this and can make it better. And that in and of itself is incredibly positive, okay? So there are other kinds of, or two different kinds of, I should say, powerful questions. Information gathering is one, and curious. So information gathering can be like more action oriented in a way. How much time do you need to spend on this? Or, how much time do we need for this, and who can help us with it? Those are two examples. And just curious, what will finishing this project look like? Are you excited about it, and how so? Like, why are you excited about it? Okay. So these are some examples of powerful questions that you can use in order to, again, establish a better relationship with this person and be more open with them and invite them to be more open with you. That's part of why these powerful questions are helpful, because it can establish that greater, honesty and open communication and feedback. Okay. So quickly, we'll continue with a couple more coaching skills here, but what I wanted to mention to you all is if we do not get to everyone's questions in the chat box, okay, feel free to schedule a free career strategy session with me to get advice on what we're talking about today, but also anything else in terms of your career, guys, because here's the deal. In some cases, these tips and this advice can be helpful to you, but obviously it's generalized. And so if you have a very particular situation that is unique, that you've been struggling with, please just contact me, email me here, and I'm happy to set up a quick time to chat with you about your unique situation and give you some advice about what to do and how to handle it. Because again, people's situations are always different, and sometimes we need to come up with something that's very specific for your goals, okay? So as we talked about at the beginning, some of the additional critical coaching skills, I just wanted to kind of touch on these briefly, and then we'll start to go into Q&A here, everybody, is using your intuition, okay? So I want you to start also slowing down and listening to your intuition, not just thinking through every single thing rationally, but use your intuition to identify solutions to some of these problems, to what might be going on with this other person. Instead of sometimes overanalyzing, let it simmer overnight so that you can kind of either calm down or get a gut instinct about what you need to do next. Sit quietly with the issue, journal about it, talk to a mentor or a coach. And the idea is, though, everybody, you got to approach the situation calmly, because that's going to allow you to, listen globally and really understand more what's going on, but also listen to your gut instincts about what may be happening with this person. One of our clients, and let me go to this next slide here, and then we'll go to action steps. I want you all to write down 2 action steps that you'll take in the next week. But one of our clients, she had a really difficult boss who was just driving her nuts, and she would just get frustrated so often with this person. When we talked about what was maybe going on with this woman outside of the office, she was able to develop greater empathy for why she might be unhappy. She was working really long hours. She was alone and didn't want to be. So when we started to talk about, gosh, where was she coming from and why might she be frustrated? There were actually some things that this client came up with to better understand, and approach her and be less frustrated with her, because she was like, oh, I get it. Like, she's got some other things going on. Sometimes that's the case, and developing that empathy can, if nothing else, it can help you be calmer about the situation and less frustrated, okay? So we do want to practice self-management here at the top of the slide as well. Try not to judge them. Try not to criticize them. Just empathize and try to get into a place of asking questions. I know, everybody, this is not always going to be perfect, but this is a start. And even if, let's say, at the end of the day, you feel like, gosh, I have to leave this job because I've tried everything, and it's not working, at least you can say to yourself, I've tried everything. You want to be able to say that to yourself, okay? And then finally, kind of 3 tips, if you will, or 3 critical pieces of effective communication is to be assertive and understanding. And the formula for that is to show understanding first. Go into this with trying to understand the other person's perspective first versus your own. State the facts and stick to the facts as much as possible versus getting into emotions, because that can help or be worse because it kind of can fan the flames. And then be sure to be prepared to offer a resolution. Just don't go in there with a complaint or an issue, but go in there too with, here's some possible solutions. Ask them first about what their ideas are about some possible solutions, because again, that will get their buy-in and help them take more responsibility. But always be prepared to offer a resolution because they may not have one, okay? All right, so we're going to pause here for a moment, everybody, and I want you to first write down 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. And you can use me as an accountability partner and say, I'm going to email Hallie next week, next Thursday or Friday, with my 2 action steps and any questions I have from that. Just feel free to do that. These are 2 possible action steps that you can take, or you can pick something else. I'm going to practice just asking questions with a friend or family member or anything else that you want to do, okay? And then let's go ahead. I want to leave you, before we go to Q&A, I want to leave you with this final thought here. The greatest risk in life is not taking one. If any of you have been on webinars or seen me before in a presentation, you'll know this is my favorite quote. I realize that trying to approach this with someone difficult is taking a risk. I get that. And we don't want you to go so far as, gosh, you lose your job or you make the situation worse. Of course not. But we all have to take risks in our lives in order to achieve the goals we want to achieve. And so just remember this quote, the greatest risk in life isn't taking one. This is always the quote that helps me move forward to do something difficult and step out of my comfort zone rather than just kind of staying put where I am and tolerating something that doesn't work for me, okay? All right, everybody. So please feel free to set up a consultation or that strategy session to talk more with me directly about your career goals and how we might be able to help you. If you look at the bottom here, you can either email me for more information, or you can fill out our consult form on our website. If you go to HallieCrawford.com and contact us, at the top right of the page, that is where you can sign up for some free time with me to get some free advice and also learn more about our services. These are some quotes from our clients and some of the places where our clients now work. We love what we do and we're happy to chat with you. So go ahead, everyone, and we've got at least one question here that I want to go ahead and start answering. Feel free to put some more in the chat box if you would like to, okay? So one of the questions here is, when is it best to bring in a third party when the conversation isn't going well, to assure it's not, you know, he said, she said, or harassment allegations? Oh my gosh, great question. This is perfect. So what I would say is, first of all, if you have tried some of these kind of softer tactics, right, and opened up, you know, some conversation with this person and it's already not gone very well and there's possible harassment, etc., the next time you try to talk with them, absolutely bring in a third party. If another situation, if you feel like, and you have the gut instinct already, even in a first conversation with them, that this could be a problem because you've either observed it with other people, or there could be kind of a touchy situation just because you know how this person is and you're concerned about it, bring in a third party right away. The only problem with it is that you don't want to, you know, fan the flames. And when you bring in a third party, the other person could automatically kind of be a little bit more defensive. So you do want to consider that. And what you could do is you could go to the third party, like HR, for example, and say, look, I'm having this trouble with this person. You know, obviously this needs to be kept confidential. And I want to talk with them about it, but here are my concerns. What would you recommend? And talk to HR first before you even make a decision about bringing them in, and say, look, if there's an issue that comes up and I come back to you, like, is it okay if I just have it, you know, handwritten notes recorded about what happened? And they might say yes, or they might say, you know, our policy is to handle it a different way. And we want you to, you know, have the person talk to us right away, or, you know, do all of it at once. So I would get their advice about it if you feel like it could go the wrong direction. But err on the side, everyone, of having a third party, especially if you think it's going to be harassment, or there's an allegation of something that's not going to be okay, or there's unethical behavior. Err on the side of having kind of a neutral third party, okay? Great question. Okay. Sometimes a person brings up a third person's comments. Is it good to bring that person in on the conversation so it can be heard by both? This was another question. Um, yes, I think it is, especially if it could be a touchy situation. It can be good to bring that person in so that the conversation can be heard by both. However, what you want to be mindful of is you want to prepare the other person, the third person, that you're going to bring this person in. Don't just like, you know, have them feel like they're being ganged up on. Let them know, hey, I want to talk about this, situation. I want to help diffuse things and figure things out. I'd like to bring Joe in to talk about it too, because I think he might have some good advice. So is that okay with you? Kind of ask permission so they don't get defensive right out of the box. So I think it's okay to bring that third person in, but you don't want to have them be caught off guard, okay? One immediate action step that we've got, thank you for sharing this, and we do have the group chat, it's on private. I'm not sure if that is my setting or if it's just automatic there, so thanks for letting us know that. But one person's immediate action step is to go through the active listening exercise and ask for the slides, which is great. I know that I talk faster than you can take notes, absolutely. So that's why I want you all to have the recording. You will get the recording afterwards as a reminder, and you can also have the presentation as well. And planning to practice active listening with your husband, that's great, okay? And having some specific discussions that you guys or he has been avoiding is perfect. Go into it and let him know, hey, I want to talk about some touchy stuff. Is that okay? Again, ask his permission, because by the way, everybody, this can go for our personal lives as well. And I think he will take it better than you would otherwise, okay? All right, everyone. That is the last question that we have. Thank you so much for attending today, for your participation, and also for your questions and your action steps. Again, please feel free to contact me for any additional information that you need. I wish you the best of luck with your active listening, curious questions, and also everything that we talked about today. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. Have a great day, guys.